Hello everyone, Republic Jim here. I'm just making my way up to the upper property to do an overnight camp out. And what I wanted to do is put my improvised shelter system to the test. I did a video about it a while back, which I will link to, my shelter with no ridgeline, which I'm now calling a Slarp shelter due to a combination of a sled and a tarp. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to do that before all the snow went away. So being stubborn, I wanted to try it out anyway. And actually the sled slides relatively well on the wet grass. But when I get to the uphill parts, especially this final climb ahead of me, then it gets extremely difficult. It's much like doing a very heavy weighted sled in the gym. And I've got about a quarter-mile hike. Once I get up this last ascent, then it levels out quite a bit, including a little downhill, so shouldn't be too bad. But I just have to survive that. And once I get up there, then I can get things set up. I'd hoped to get it set up during daylight, but there were just chores I had to take care of at home. So got that. I'm heading up to set it up now. And then full disclosure, I'm not going to cook my dinner up there. We got takeout pizza, so I'm going to be heading back down to the house and having dinner, do the dog's final walk and such, and then I'll head back up and get in my shelter, spend the night up here. And there's a couple things I want to test out, and so yeah. Anyway, I pretty much have my wind back now after that ascent, so I'm ready to do the final challenging part and eager to get over to my site and get set up. I'll check in later. Well, here's my home for the night. I just did hike back up here, set it up earlier, of course, but I didn't get around to taking any video or pictures of it at the time. It's kind of a Rube Goldberg setup, but it's not especially bad weather tonight. In fact, it's dead calm at the moment, which is kind of nice, but I anchored it down pretty well anyway. And I've got this one side just staked out and partially open. If I need to, I can pull that other tab that's hanging down there out and stake it out further if it starts raining and I don't want it dripping inside there. I can open that up and get it further out. But this is the basic Slarp shelter, which, as I demonstrated in my other video, is simply a sled with a couple of trekking poles holding it up and then the tarp draped over it and then tied out and staked out and such. And just because I had the sled and I had more room, I didn't feel like messing around with building a sleeping platform or anything. I actually brought along an old lightweight folding cot, and there's my new camp lantern, which is just on its low setting right now, but lighting up the interior a bit. So you can see the sled there and the trekking poles holding it up, and then the tarp draped over it. And now I'm gonna have to quit yakking and get my sleeping pad inflated and get my blanket out there, get my whoopee and poncho just in case I need that, and think about getting into bed because it's just about 11 o'clock now, and I've got stuff to do in the morning, but wanted to test out the basic concept of this shelter for an overnight, and then also test out some of the new gear that I got, including that lantern and the wool blanket and my new sleeping pad and such. So that's what I have for now, and I'll see how it goes after tonight. Well, I finally got situated in here. Got my wool blanket wrapped around me, and then my poncho and liner on top of that. That top layer should protect against some of the condensation that I'm bound to accumulate on this, since I have some ventilation here, but it's definitely going to condense there since I don't have as much airflow as I normally would on a tarp shelter. And so far the sleeping pad is relatively comfortable. Took a little bit of messing around trying to figure out how to get it inflated, but eventually got it. And got my little camp lantern set up back over here, which I'm about ready to turn off and call it a night. And I'll do some testing of some other stuff in the morning. Well, good morning, everyone. It's just after 5:30, and I don't know if it comes through on the microphone on this, but there's a dog off in the distance. It's been barking just non-stop for somewhere around 10 or 15 minutes and not showing any signs of letting up. So apparently I'm not going to be getting any more sleep this morning. Plus I also heard just a few moments ago some turkeys off in the distance that are starting to get revved up. So I guess it's time for me to get up and break out my stove and start heating up some water and that sort of thing. But my shelter seems to have held up just fine. Of course, like I said, it was calm last night, so no wind or anything. But I think it would have done relatively well anyway. I probably would have had to batten down this part over here a little tighter, but yeah, it worked out good. And the wool blanket and the poncho did okay. If it had been any colder, I probably would have needed something else, but it was just enough to stay comfortable. So anyhow, I'm gonna drag myself up and see about getting moving. And suddenly the dog went quiet, so that's interesting. But probably not going to be able to go back to sleep now, so we'll get the day started. So I'm up and about now and just getting some of my stuff out. I drug out my big bag with the sorted gear in it there so I can set up my stove and get my breakfast going. And the dog's still barking, and now I have turkeys calling from 2 different directions. So definitely not a real peaceful morning at this point. So time to get moving. As you can see, the sleeping pad stayed fully inflated. That worked well. The cot there was not bad. relatively comfortable. It's obviously a little too bulky for what I would normally want to do, but for this particular setup, it worked pretty well. So, anyway, now I need to get the stove out and fire that up and test it out. So I'm testing out this new stove that I got from Amazon as part of their Amazon Vine review program. It comes in this handy little container which opens up like so, and it's fairly rigid and well padded and protective. The stove has these 3 burners. The top folds out like so, and similarly the feet on the bottom fold out. Should give it a fairly stable base. And part of what I liked about this, it has the regular attachment that threads onto a isobutane fuel container, but it also came with this adapter for hooking up a propane bottle, which is what I intend to do right now. One of these guys. And that threads on nicely. That's how you regulate the fuel with this little knob on the side here. And has a handy little fold-out igniter here. And just like that, we have ignition. So far, I don't know if this would be any better with the isobutane, but with the propane, it's very frustrating. It seems to just flare up or die down, and there's no middle ground. I had it just raging with flames shooting up on the sides, and then when I tried to turn it down, it sputtered and went out. So far, for a stove that looks pretty solid and all that, I'm not real impressed with the actual performance. So momentarily here, I'm going to have to start tearing down my shelter, and once I get my coffee, then I might take the time to do some instant oatmeal and have that, but then I'll need to get everything loaded up and in the sled and get my harness on, get ready to haul it back down the hill, because I've got plans and things I have to do today. So unfortunately I can't spend a lot of time hanging around out here, but at least it's given me a chance to test out some things and find out issues like this, and hopefully I can get all that figured out. Also, I wanted to note that this little camp light lantern thing worked out fairly well. funny is it's not really quite as big as what the advertisement on Amazon makes it seem like. Just doesn't exactly extend up really high, but it's pretty cool. This part rotates around, and there's different brightness settings, and then you can also long press, and it changes the temperature of the light anywhere from yellow to white. So anyway, cool little thing. It's got magnetic spots on the feet. Oh, look at that. And my water engine is boiling. So it does get hot quickly once it starts jetting like that. But as I was saying, this thing has magnetic feet when they're extended out, so you can stick it onto something, metal, and position it in different ways. So kind of handy, compact. You can also rotate that around so it's pointed forward and use it like a flashlight. Kind of a awkward flashlight, but can be used like that, or you rotate this part around and use it to aim the light whatever direction is needed, or can be used like that with the little shade here, just for some dimmer ambient lighting. So yeah, pretty cool. I would not pay anywhere near what they charge for that. They claim that the value of it is about $90, but I got it through the Vine program and thought, well, it's worth checking it out. And it is a cool light. It's just in no way do I think that a light like that is worth $90, but I'll gladly use the thing, put it to the test. And now I gotta stop talking and dig out my instant coffee before that cools off. So now I'm testing out this new cookware that I got. It seems like the stove is sort of stabilizing now. I don't know, maybe it just had to kind of work something out of the system there, but now the fuel is regulating a lot better, so that's encouraging. Checking out this pan here, and I also had the little kettle. It's all fairly small stuff. Theoretically, it's supposed to be for backpacking and such, but I kind of question whether any serious backpacker would carry it, because it still seems a little bulky for that. But I don't know. I don't do through hiking or anything, so for my uses, I'm sure not going to shove it into my SAR pack. but I could see carrying it in the car just in case I needed to do any emergency cooking out in the field. I don't know, it's small for that application, but as I said, kind of bulky for backpacking. On the advertisement, they show like carrying it in the pouch that they provide and hanging off of the pack down next to the leg, which I don't think anybody in their right mind would do when they're hiking, because it would just be banging against the leg constantly and be really annoying. So I don't see any way that anybody would want to carry that in that way. It would pretty much need to be strapped onto or inside the pack. But I don't know, for a cheesy, lightweight, stackable cooking set, seems okay. It's got these funny little cups with the rubber deals that slip onto them so that they're not too hot. So far, I didn't scald my lips on it or anything, but I don't think metal is the ideal thing for a cup if you're going to be drinking coffee or tea or whatever. But I don't know, it works. Another one of those items I probably would not have purchased, but since I got it through the Vine program, I'm testing it out, and I'll write a detailed review on it, and you know, I'll pack it all up in the, you know, stack it all and put it in the pouch, and probably carry that in my Jeep just in case. Yeah, I have to say that this stove is performing much better on heating this than it was when I first fired it up. So maybe I should have fired it at home before I ever brought it out in the field, you know, and got it working smoothly then. But I thought, why not just break it in right away on a Campout and see how it does. So I'm feeling a little better about that now. There we go. Got some instant oatmeal to go with my instant coffee. Breakfast of the champions. Not exactly real satisfying, but it'll tide me over and give me some energy to make the trek back to the house. So, and it's just good practice to occasionally use the stuff that I have in my pack and survive on that, because if I was out on a SAR mission, that's what I would have to do. So anyway, I'm going to eat this, and then I'll start breaking down my shelter and putting things back in the sled and getting ready to head out. So before I tear this down and load everything in the sled, I want to talk just briefly about the site for my shelter. Normally, I would be camped in the trees, and obviously there's trees all around here. I would set up a ridge line and a tarp shelter, but because I was doing my Slarp shelter with the sled and didn't need a ridge line, I wanted to set up somewhere out in the open and test it out that way. That was the whole point of this. And originally I'd planned on being right out in the middle of that opening there with nothing around me. But then unfortunately, when I got up here last night, I realized that there was a gap in the trees over there where I could see light shining through from properties over towards the lake. And one of them was flashing on and off. It was very distracting. So I decided to come back over this way far enough that the trees were blocking all those lights and it was much darker and more peaceful. This is actually an old road that runs through my property, goes over to the gate there to the neighbor's property. I think at one time they used roads to get in here and log some of it. So normally I wouldn't set up my shelter in the middle of any kind of road, but of course this one hasn't been used other than by me occasionally when I drive around up here. So it's not like there's any worry of anybody coming driving along. And even though it's a little bit of a downhill slope towards my shelter here, I know from experience that this area drains pretty well. It just soaks into the ground, and I've been up here when it was raining pretty hard and there's no water running along this area. And since I was on a cot anyway, I figured even if it did rain and there was some seeping in around on the backside here, there wouldn't be nearly enough to cause me any problems. So didn't really have a concern with that. So at that point, the main thing that I was looking for, like I said, was to get over here where I couldn't see any lights and I wasn't too close to the trees. And then I needed to find a place that was level enough that I could set my cot and not have to worry about it tipping over. So this was the spot that I came up with, and it worked out really well. I was pleased with the results, and I think that even if the weather had been much more severe, I could have tied things out as necessary, and this thing would have held up just fine overnight and kept me warm and dry. So I definitely want to do that again in the winter when I can pull the sled in the snow and practice setting it up as I intended it. But for now, this has been a good practice run. Now I'm going to set the camera aside and see about taking things down and getting ready to go. Right, now I just have to load everything up. I will see about drying out the tarp in my barn, and I'll fold up and roll up and stow things away properly once I get back home. But since I'm not out here on a multi-day camp out or backpacking trip or anything, I have the luxury of not having to put it all away properly right now. So I'm just gonna pack everything up and deal with it when I get home. So I'm all packed up, Got my sled, got my harness on, and just working my way back across the property, headed over towards where it goes down from the ridge. At the moment, I don't need my trekking poles because this isn't too bad on the fairly level ground, although I still have to really lean into the harness. But when I get over to the spot where there's a little bit of an uphill, then I will definitely need to break out the poles so I can assist with going up that. And this is one of these challenging spots with pulling a sled, fighting my way through and around trees. But I found that I can just grab the lanyard there and kind of help guide it, and it's not too bad. Anyway, shortly I'm going to be over to the spot where it starts going uphill right to the top of the ridge before I head down. So I will need to put down the camera and focus on what I'm doing, and I'll be breathing hard. But anyway, it's been a fun little overnight. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to stay out here longer, but have to go run errands and take care of some other stuff. So at least I had a chance to get out in the woods a bit. Hope you guys enjoyed this, or found it interesting or informative in some way. This has been Republic Jim. I'll talk to you later.